I wasn't looking for anyone, especially not that night. I was just trying to get through another quiet Friday with takeout and reruns. It's a kind of night that feels heavy with loneliness, but at least predictable. You know, the kind where you're not sad exactly, just empty. I had just cracked a beer and kicked off my shoes when I heard a soft knock on my door. Not loud, not urgent, just enough to pull me out of my head. I don't usually answer at night, not since the breakup, not since I stopped expecting anything good to come after 8 p.m. But something made me go to the door. Maybe it was boredom or instinct or fate dressed up as curiosity. When I opened it, she was standing there barefoot on the doormat wearing cut-off shorts and a damp white tank top like she'd run through the rain. Her dark curls stuck to her cheeks and her eyes hazel wide. Tired met mine with this kind of quiet desperation that hit me in the chest. She said, breathless. I just moved in next door. Think I blew a fuse or something. My whole place is dark and I don't even have a flashlight yet. She smiled like she hated asking for help. And right then, I forgot every plan I had for the night. Hell, I forgot my own name. I let her in, grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, and before I knew it, she was in my living room, dripping water onto my rug and making small talk about moving trucks and bad landlords. Her name was Claire. She was from Montreal, she said, just out of a long relationship and needed a fresh start. The words came out fast, like she was trying to convince herself just as much as me. I handed her a towel. She laughed and wrapped it around her shoulders, flashing a glimpse of a tattoo on her ribcage, something written in cursive I couldn't quite read. We talked, really talked. Hours passed like minutes. There was this ease to her, like she lived with one foot always out the door, but somehow made you want to ask her to stay. And then, somewhere between the third drink and the second story about her road trip through New Mexico, our knees touched. Not by accident. I looked at her. She looked at me. And everything inside me said, don't do this. But then she leaned in, just slightly, just enough. And I was gone. I kissed her. No slow buildup, no permission asked. Just heat and hunger and something wild that had been locked up in both of us for too long. We stumbled down the hallway, mouths on each other, clothes peeling off like second skin. Her body against mine felt like something I hadn't known I was starving for. She moaned into my neck like she was trying to forget someone else. And maybe I was too. The sex wasn't perfect. It was rushed, messy, aching, but it was real. It felt like falling off a cliff and hoping someone would catch you at the bottom. Afterward, she didn't leave. It curled into me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we hadn't just been strangers a few hours earlier. Aid. There in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her breath warm against my chest. I should have felt panic, regret, but instead I felt alive. For the first time in months, maybe longer. Still, a voice deep down whispered, this is too fast, too easy, something's off. But I pushed it away, choosing to believe in whatever magic had brought her to my doorstep. That night, I didn't ask questions. I didn't try to define what had just happened. I just held her and let the storm outside blur the lines between mistake and fate. Asterisk, the morning after always tells the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. And when I opened my eyes and saw her still in my bed, curled up, beneath my sheets like she belonged there, I felt something I didn't expect. Panic laced with hope. It wasn't the usual regret that creeps in after a one-night stand. It was something deeper. Like my heart knew I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Claire lay there with her back to me, one bare shoulder poking out, her breath slow and steady. For a second, I let myself pretend she was mine. Not just a stranger who knocked on my door during a blackout, but someone I could wake up next to again and again. But then reality came crashing back, dragging all its baggage with it. I didn't know her. Not really. I knew the curve of her hips, the sounds she made when I touched her, and the way her laugh broke open when she was a little drunk, but I didn't know what made her tick. What broke her? What she'd left behind? And yet, here she was, in my bed, wrapped in my sheets. Stealing space in a life I thought I'd finally gotten used to being alone in. She stirred then, rolling toward me with a sleepy smile, and whispered, "Hey, it's just one word." And I was completely undone. Her eyes were soft, unguarded in a way they hadn't been the night before. I wanted to say something clever, something that would make sense of everything, but all I managed was, "Hey, back." We lay there for a while, quiet, the kind of silence that hums, not because it's empty, but because it's full of unspoken things. Eventually, we got up. She pulled on my hoodie, padded barefoot into the kitchen, and started making coffee like she'd done it 100 times before. I watched her, my stomach twisting. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. She teased me about my awful taste in music as she scrolled through my playlist, and I laughed. But part of me was waiting for her to say she had to go, that this had been a mistake. She didn't. Instead, she stayed. The day stretched on, casual and surreal. We ate cereal on the couch. She told me about growing up in Quebec, how she used to sneak out her bedroom window to meet boys under the streetlights. I told her about the girl who broke my heart 2 years ago, who left without a word and took our dog with her. Claire listened, without interrupting, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing patterns on my arm. It was easy, too easy. And that's when I felt the first crack beneath the surface, because nothing in my life had ever felt this smooth and fast without a cost. That night, she didn't go back to her place. Her clothes stayed crumpled on my floor, her toothbrush still untouched in whatever moving box it was packed in. And maybe it was because I didn't want her to leave, or maybe it was because she didn't know where else to go, but she stayed. We made love slower this time. Less wild, more tender. Like we were trying to memorize each other's skin. She fell asleep, wrapped around me like I was the only safe place she had left. But sleep didn't come easy for me. Not that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone could walk into your life so suddenly and feel like both salvation and a warning sign. And then, sometime around 2 a.m., I noticed the way she murmured in her sleep, soft and anxious, like she was running from something even in her dreams. I brushed her hair back and kissed her temple, but the unease crept in anyway. There was something about her, something I couldn't quite name, sadness that clung to her smile, a hesitation in the way she reached for me. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't ask. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd deal with it later, but deep down, I already knew. Whatever this was, this connection, this fire between us, it wasn't going to be simple. It never is. You always think the heat will last forever, that if the chemistry is real enough, intense enough, it'll hold everything else together. But desire doesn't drown out doubt, not for long. And when it started to happen, when the little cracks began to show between me and clay art, couldn't tell if I was imagining it or if I'd been ignoring it all along. It wasn't a blow-up, not at first. It was smaller than that. She pulled away during a kiss. She took longer to answer texts. Her smiles got shorter. Her eyes started to drift when I talked. But I brushed it off. Told myself it was just the adjustment or stress from the move. Or maybe she was still tangled up in whatever she'd left behind. I didn't want to believe it might be me. The real fight, the one that cut deep, started over something stupid. We were lying in bed, legs tangled, late-night TV flickering across our skin, and I asked her about Montreal. Just a simple question, or so I thought. "Do you ever think about him?" said, not even looking at her. "Your ex, the one you left." She stiffened. "What kind of question is that?" I shrugged, trying to play it off, even though my throat was already tight. "I don't know. Just, do you?" There was this long silence between us, thick and bitter. And then she sat up, yanking the blanket off her legs. "Why do you care?" she snapped. "You knew what this was." That hit me like a slap. What was this, Claire? You've been in my bed for 3 weeks. You don't leave. You kiss me like I'm the only thing keeping you breathing. So, yeah, excuse me if I care. She stood up, pacing like a caged thing. You don't get it. Do you think because we sleep together and laugh over coffee that you know me? You don't. Then help me, I said, rising to my feet, voice rising too. Tell me what I don't know. But she didn't. She just grabbed her keys and left barefoot. No coat, no explanation. The door slammed so hard behind her it rattled the walls. I sat in the silence, heart pounding, half expecting her to come back 5 minutes later with an apology and a tear-stained face. But she didn't. Not that hour. Not that night. I didn't sleep. I kept looking at the door like it might open on its own. She came back the next morning, eyes red, hoodie soaked from rain, mascara smudged like war paint. She didn't say anything. At first just looked at me like she'd aged a year overnight. I panicked, she said finally. Her voice was small, shaky. I'm sorry. I didn't know if I wanted to pull her into my arms or scream at her. But instead, I just nodded. Okay, we didn't talk much after that. She showered while I made coffee. Then we found our way back to each other in that familiar way that is crashing like waves, angry and desperate and wordless. We had sex that morning like we were trying to erase what happened. And maybe for a few hours it worked. But later, when she was sleeping beside me again, I found myself wide awake staring at the ceiling like I had that first night. Except this time, it wasn't wonder that kept me up. 'Twas fear. Because now I knew the fire between us could burn just as easily as it could warm. And I wasn't sure how many more nights like that I could take Dot, or how long she'd stay before. She ran again. Asterisk, you know that moment when someone's lying next to you? Warm and breathing and tangled in your sheets, and yet somehow they feel 1,000 miles away. That's how it was with Claire. She was still there in body, in whispers, in soft touches in the middle of the night, but something in her had gone quiet. Like a door had closed that I didn't even see her walk through. And I kept pretending I didn't notice that we were. Just in a rough patch that every couple hits these dips. But the truth was louder than my excuses. I was losing her. Or maybe I never really had her in the first place. It started with the phone calls. Quick ones she'd take out on the balcony. Her voice hushed but intense, pacing back and forth in a way that made my stomach knot. I asked once casually, trying not to sound possessive, "Everything okay?" And she smiled that smile that doesn't touch the eyes and said, "Just my sister. Family stuff." I wanted to believe her. God, I tried to believe her, but I knew that tone. I'd used it myself when I didn't want someone digging deeper, and then things just shifted. She didn't laugh as often. She didn't ask about my day. She spent more time next door at her place, suddenly obsessed with getting the apartment set up, when for weeks she'd lived half out of a duffel bag on my bedroom floor. She pulled away from me in small, invisible ways. No more good morning. Kisses. No more dancing in the kitchen with music playing low. The kind of details that feel tiny until they're all you have left to hold on to. I tried to bring it up one night. I waited until we were in bed after she'd made love to me with this kind of aching slowness that felt more like goodbye than passion. "Are you okay?" I asked, brushing her hair from her cheek. "You felt far lately," she tensed, but didn't pull away. "I'm just overwhelmed," she said. "It's nothing to do with you. But it was about me or about us. Or maybe about something she was trying to protect me from." And that was the worst part, not knowing what the hell I was fighting against. I wanted her to tell me the truth. I wanted her to choose me. But instead, she gave me half-truths and broken smiles and sex that felt more like silence than connection. The twist came a few days later. I had gone over to her place for the first time in a while. She was working on furniture, she said, and needed space. But something had been gnawing at me. I knocked. She didn't answer. I used the spare key she gave me weeks ago without asking her first. I know I shouldn't have, but love makes you reckless. Inside, the apartment was a mess of half-unpacked boxes and takeout containers. I called her name, nothing. And then I saw at her phone sitting unlocked on the counter, buzzing with a text that lit up the screen. He can't find out. Not yet. I need more time. My heart nearly stopped. I didn't even know who it was from. But I didn't have to. The pieces started clicking together in my head, her panic, her distance, the late-night calls, the way she never talked about her past. I didn't know the full story, but I knew enough to feel the burn of betrayal. When she came home an hour later and saw me holding her phone, her face went pale. "You went through my stuff?" she asked, voice shaking. I held up the screen. "You lied to me?" She closed her eyes, like the weight of everything she was hiding had finally caught up to her. "It's not what you think," she whispered. But the worst part was I believed her. That made it hurt even more. Because love should be simple. But with Claire, it never had been. And I was starting to wonder if it ever could be. I've been betrayed before, but not like this. Not by someone who held me like I was home, who looked at me like I was the only person in the room that mattered. When I read that message on Claire's phone, it didn't just sting, it shattered something in me, because I'd let her in. I'd let her fill the quiet places I didn't let anyone near. And now, standing there in her half-unpacked apartment, that one sentence, "He can't find out. Not yet," felt like a bullet I didn't see coming. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tear apart every lie she'd carefully layered between us. But when she walked in and saw the phone in my hand, it was the look on her face that undid me more than the message ever could. She didn't look guilty. She looked afraid. And in that second, I didn't know who I was more furious with, her for keeping something from me, or myself for still wanting to hold her anyway. "You have to let me explain," she said barely. Above a whisper, her eyes glossed with panic. She reached for me, but I stepped back like her touch might burn me. "Is there someone else?" I asked. The words scraped my throat raw. "Were you with someone before me, while you were with me?" She hesitated, and that hesitation said everything before she even opened her mouth. "It's complicated," she said. "I wasn't supposed to feel anything for you. This us, it wasn't part of the plan." "What plan?" I shot back, louder now. My hands were shaking. "You moved in. You showed up at my door. You climbed into my bed and you stayed. That wasn't an accident." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Claire wasn't the crying type. She clenched her jaw like she was swallowing a scream. "I was trying to leave someone. He wasn't just my ex. He's more than that. Controlling, dangerous. I thought if I left quietly, started over somewhere, knew he'd let me go. But he hasn't." The air went cold. I stared at her, heart pounding. "So that text." "He's been calling," she said, nodding, threatening. "I've been stalling, trying to make him think I'm just getting settled. That there's nothing here for him to worry about." That's what the message was about. I didn't know what to believe. Her words were raw, real, but so were the lies. She'd told by omission. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked. "You could have said something. I would have helped you." Claire looked at me then, really looked like she was seeing me for the first time in weeks, 'cause I didn't want you to save me. I wanted to be someone new. I didn't want to drag you into the mess I left behind. But I did anyway. And suddenly, I saw the weight she carried in her silences. The way her smile sometimes faltered when she thought I wasn't looking. The restless nights she spent curled into me like she was hiding from ghosts. It wasn't just fear. It was guilt. She'd been trying to protect me. But she'd also betrayed the thing I valued most, trust. "I don't know what to do with this," I said honestly, the ache in my chest almost unbearable. "I love you. God help me. I do. But I don't know how to trust you anymore." That was the first time I said it. Lavande, the word hung in the air between us like something holy and broken. She walked toward me, slow, cautious. "I didn't plan on loving you either, but I do." And I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like you were just temporary. I didn't move. I couldn't. Part of me wanted to pull her in, kiss her, say it didn't matter, that we'd figure it out. But another part, maybe the smarter one, screaming to protect what was left of my heart. So I told her what I had to. I need time. I need to think. Claire nodded like she expected that. She stepped back, eyes glistening, and whispered, "I'll be next door." And just like that, she was gone. And the silence she left behind felt so much louder than the one that existed before her. Asterisk love doesn't leave quietly echoes. Even after she was gone, Claire was everywhere. In the scent of her shampoo still clinging to my pillow. In the coffee mug she'd claimed as hers. In the aching silence of mornings where I reached for her out of habit, only to find cold sheets. And a hollowness I couldn't shake. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was how much I still wanted her, despite it. How much of me still believed that what we had was real. Because for all the lies and half-truths, there were moments that couldn't be fake nights when she clung to me like I was her only anchor. The way her laughter had made my apartment feel like home for the first time in years. I hated her for breaking my trust, but I hated myself more for still loving her anyway. Days passed, I didn't reach out, neither did she. But I saw her coming and going. Lighter somehow, like carrying her truth finally, painfully had unburdened her. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. It just reminded me that we were two people standing on opposite sides of a line we didn't know how to cross anymore. The night the knock came, it was late after midnight and I was already 2 drinks deep, sitting in the dark, pretending I didn't still replay every word of our last conversation. When I opened the door, there she was, Claire, soaking wet from the rain. Cheeks flushed, eyes wide like she'd been running. And I knew before she said a word that something had happened. "He found me," she said, voice trembling. He showed up at my door. I stepped aside without thinking, pulled her in, wrapped a towel around her shoulders with shaking hands. She was freezing, shivering against me. I wanted to punch something, someone. But more than that, I wanted her safe. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "You did the right thing," I told her. And I meant it. That night, she told me everything. No more half-truths, no more deflections, just raw, honest pain. About the man she left, the emotional manipulation, the threats. How he'd followed her before. How she'd been afraid to tell me because she didn't want me caught in the crossfire. And as I listened, I didn't just hear her story, I felt it. Every word was a wound she'd carried alone for too long. I held her tighter than I ever had, and this time it wasn't about sex or passion or trying to forget something. It was about showing up, about standing in the storm with her, not trying to fix her, just being there the next morning. I woke up with her curled into me like always, but it felt different, real, solid, not borrowed time. We talked a lot, and it wasn't perfect. I told her how much she'd hurt me. She owned it. I told her I didn't know if I could fully trust her again. She said she'd earn it back. Not with promises, but with time, and slowly, painfully, we began again. It wasn't the fairy tale ending I once pictured. There were still long nights, lingering doubts. But there was also laughter again, dancing in the kitchen. Her hand in mine on quiet walks, and love fragile, scarred, but alive, stronger, maybe because of what had survived. Sometimes when I wake up to find her asleep beside me, I still think about that first night, how she just showed up, uninvited, unexpected, and yet somehow exactly what I needed. She wrecked me, no doubt. But maybe some people come into your life not to keep it calm, but to show you what it means to fight for something real. Even if it starts messy, even if it nearly breaks you. Claire wasn't a mistake. She was a beginning.